Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code. And I got a fun episode today. We've got the general, the leader, the boss at Core Nutritionals, Mr. Doug Miller. How are you, Doug?
What's going on? I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
So a lot's happening in the core world, and it's remarkable to think about uh, the athletes that are involved at Core and like the things that they're doing in the sport. You
Yeah.
know, and I don't think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation's world champion bodybuilder is now Brian DaCosta. And that's a title that in our like peer group, that's about as big as it gets. I
Yeah.
mean, between that, the Yorton Cup, I mean, those are like the titles to have in natural
Yeah.
bodybuilding. So let's talk a little bit about that because Brian's been with Core for a while.
Yeah. Well, this is great. It takes a lot of pressure off of me. People don't care that I'm not competing anymore, so they're just like, I can like pass the torch on to Brian and he can carry it, right? Like, not to mention we also have Chris Elkins, who was a world physique champion, not this past year, but the year before.
So I think he won 2 years in a row. This year he ended up getting fourth. Yeah, and well, obviously Daraja for the third year in a row was in the top 10 at the Olympia.
And
Um,
Ariana now is a core athlete. She was
yeah,
top 10
the
at the
the
Olympia.
dark-haired girl with the small waist, as you call her.
That was before I knew her. I didn't know she was. I didn't know
Well,
she was your client. Well, I knew she was your client, but I didn't know she like worked out at like in our gym.
so
Like
I
it was kind of
so I
funny.
had never been to Crush It Coliseum. I had
Yeah,
seen like images, but it was changing so rapidly. I didn't really know like there wasn't these like images that you go, "Oh, that's Crush It Coliseum."
yeah,
So when I would see her pictures on her Instagram, I'd be like, God, that gym looks familiar. And then one day I was like, wait a minute, where do you train? And she's like, I train because she's like, I live in Winston-Salem. So I didn't connect the dots. She's like, oh, well, we drive 45 minutes. There's this awesome gym called Crush It Coliseum. I was like, get the crap out of here. Are you
yeah,
serious? And then,
yeah,
like the next time I talked to you, I said, hey, have you seen this girl in the gym? And he goes, there's this dark haired girl, really smiley waist. I go, yeah, that's her. Like so yeah,
yeah,
she got well, she's already qualified for the next Olympia. She won the last pro show of the year and she got seventh in the world.
yeah.
So like the
Well, I
core
mean, I think it's
athletes are
really cool that like the way core has gone, it's way bigger than bodybuilding now, right? Like
right.
it is a lifestyle brand. We got a lot of people using the product from all walks of life, but the essence of it is now like there are some like real diehard competitors and really top end competitors use and trust our products, which is awesome, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it sticks to the roots, but it's now grown way beyond that, right? Because, bodybuilding can be very intimidating to a lot of people. So, like, and that's why we lean on the crush it saying that we have. It's not as I'm going to crush it in the gym or I'm going to crush it on stage. It transcends that. So, your average person who works out 3-4 times a week and wants to get in good shape, but also wants to be a good parent, do well at their job and all these things, like they need to crush it too. And so like I think that's why the brand has been doing really well, is it speaks to not just your elite athletes, but other people as well. But I love, from, coming from with my background and why I started the company, the fact that we have all of these great athletes now and we're attracting more all the time, is awesome. Like I'm super excited about that. And like I said it jokingly, but like, there is a ready for another generation, right? Like I have done the competing that I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
95% sure that I'm done, right? I still love to train. Like we trained for 2 hours back today, right? And crushed it. We're still doing things that I probably shouldn't do. I will always do that, God willing, but it's time for other people to step up and compete and
Yeah.
at their peak. And so having Brian on board, watching him and how I mean, 3 years ago, what was that? 2019 was the last time he competed, or 4 years
Yeah.
ago. I remember him
2019
competing,
he won his pro card and then did the Yorton.
but I remember him not shaving his armpits, not tanning, like eating what was a Subway sandwich or something, like right,
Cheesecake. He ate cheesecake.
just like have, and he had great genetics and he trained hard, right? But then like all those little details, that attention to details, like
Yeah.
what some people might call bro science, but like let's be honest, works.
Oh,
Like I
well,
really
I
feel like
don't
he put everything into his competition
I
this
don't
year.
know if you got a chance to listen to our podcast that I did with him after
Mm-mm,
he won.
no.
So I asked him, so that year I was coaching him in 2019. And, as a coach, you can only say the same thing over and over, work on your posing, make sure you can hold your poses, you know, don't forget your bodybuilding trunks. Like, the great thing about Brian is that he's laid back, but that can also be, you can be too laid back. And like, my favorite story was I flew out to Sacramento when he did the show, the WNBF show out there. And the morning of the show, he goes, "Hey man, what's my first meal today?" And I was like, "Brian, I sent you your peaking plan 9 days ago. What do you mean, what's my first meal?" He never scrolled down to the meal plan for peak week. And I'm like, "Oh man, Brian, like I literally sent this a week ago. What have you been eating?" He's like, "Well, I've just been hitting my macros." I go, "Okay, so just hit your macros then. I'm not trying to." And the thing is, he's a genetic anomaly. He can get away with doing things less than optimal and still beat most people. However, I told him, I said, when you go to the Yorton Cup, you're going to see what happens when you take elite genetics, 20, 30 years of hard work, and the bro approach. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad Kurt was there that year, because Kurt is the definition of the professional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Kurt Widener, stripped down, pro tanned up, sort of flexing. And I just looked at Brian and I said, that's the difference.
Yeah.
It's
I
you
mean,
can't.
Patrick, our director of sales, competed there too and beat
Yeah.
Brian, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Patrick was peeled. Patrick just
Yeah.
doesn't have Brian's gifts,
Right.
right? Well, what's funny is like when they brought everybody out in the group, they had everybody facing front. They brought Brian right to the center. They turned to the back. They sent him right to the out. Like,
Yeah.
so he always had that like wow factor to him. And when I asked him this year what he did differently, yeah, he became a bro. He went, when I was coaching him, he was eating like 1 or 2 meals a day. He was like working till 4 in the morning. He was doing these like, wild things. This year, now he's, eating 5 meals a day. He's hitting protein with every meal. Like he's acting like a true bro.
Yeah.
So,
It's
and
amazing. And I think he was doing a lot of more low intensity cardio, right? Like doing a lot more walking as opposed to running.
yeah, no
Uh,
more, no. Yeah. One time he was like, "Hey coach, I'm going to put a ruck on. I'm going to do sprints with a ruck." And I'm like, "Oh, you're crazy." In prep.
yeah.
No,
So
all we did, he does a lot of like cardio at his desk, like the treadmill at his
yeah.
desk, standing cardio. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we gave him I gave him a Crush It coin, like a core value coin. Remember that, like I gave you on our podcast, and I gave him the Crush It coin. And he wasn't here for the Christmas party when I gave it, but somebody recorded it. And when I was talking about it, I referred to that. I was like, Brian will be the first one to admit he's kind of a goofball, like, or at least he was when it came to like competing. He loved to work out, he trained hard, but like he didn't really eat right. He wasn't doing all that bro stuff. But there was a switch, right? Like with, I don't know when it happened, but like this past year, he went all in. I was super proud of him, man. Like becoming
When he sent me his first update pictures and said, "Hey, I want to compete this year," I was literally looking at the pictures for like 10 minutes going, "How did he do that?" His quads doubled in size, his back and his shoulders were busting, his waist looked like it got 4 inches smaller. I'm like, I said to him, I said, "Man, you're going to be fighting for the world title." Like, when you go to these shows enough, you just know the look, you know what it takes. And I said, if you can get your conditioning there, um, and he was the first. I talked to the head judge after, and he was unanimous. All 7 judges in the overall, the world championships, had him winning. So, he was the
well,
first one to do
really,
it.
and I've talked about this before. The thing that really separates your good bodybuilders from your great bodybuilders, yes, he got the diet in check, but like that's not, to me, that's not rocket science, right? Like there is very like if you know what you're doing, like the diet between bodybuilder A and bodybuilder B are not that different.
Yeah,
But his training, the way that he trains the heavy compounds, the heavy deadlifts, the heavy squats, or squat motions, doesn't necessarily need to be barbell, but like he was progressing. And he reminds me a lot of like when I was in my like late 20s, early 30s, like around his age, where it's just like every week I was deadlifting. And I don't deadlift every week now, and I don't deadlift quite as heavy as I did back then. But, like that was a staple of my workout,
yeah,
heavy deadlifts. And, you look at his workouts and you can see the work he's putting in, right? Like when you see his videos and stuff, like he's training hard. It's not this frou-frou training that a lot of people do these days where they want to complicate things, or they want to add a lot of like crazy exercises just for the sake of adding crazy exercises. There's not his training isn't rocket science, but like his ability to push, right,
Yeah.
and really challenge himself, I think is what also has has made a huge difference.
Well, in those pieces, you know, when I did the podcast with him, he told me the first bodybuilder he ever saw in person was you. You know, he was training at the Gold's Gym in DC. Him and his buddy saw you and thought like, "Oh, who's this steroided out freak?" You know, like, you know, I think he remembers you were lunging with 130-pound dumbbells in each hand and thought like, "Okay." Then he found out who you were, and that's kind of like, and then I do remember you guys trained legs together in Vegas. I think it was at the Olympia.
Yeah, he was out drinking the night before during prep, and then he vomited.
But I think those kind of things, you know, sit in the back of my mind. Like, I mean, to this day, if I know I'm going to be doing training with you, I pick up my training volume for a few weeks so I can have a good workout with you. I know I'm never going to be as strong as you or have your endurance or any of that stuff, but there is a measure of knowing what people out there are doing, like seeing somebody at your level that's at the world championship level. And Brian can actually do heavy weights for high reps in
Yep.
your similar space. He's just built like a human spark plug. You know, you guys are about the same height, same weight. I mean,
Yep.
I believe on show day, he was 196 at Worlds at 5'9".
It's about
Which
right.
if you saw the lightweight and the middleweight, those guys were peeled. They were shredded, like Brian
Yes.
Whitaker level of conditioning. And so for him to beat them, you know, Brian was lean, but they were next level lean. But the middleweight was taller than Brian and, you know, 15 pounds lighter. So like he's just got that combination of really good conditioning and like just, you know, I never saw Jim Cordova in person, but that's
Yeah.
somebody that Dr. Joe says to me that Brian reminds him of.
Yeah, very much so. So Jim Cordova, I mean, he won a ton of stuff, but like he never got that Brian Whitaker peeled, right?
Right.
He was always peeled, but he was never like that kind of like, man, something's off here, like something's crazy. That I could see Brian being like that,
Yeah.
I mean, but like his muscle fullness, but to be honest with you, like Brian looks good 25 pounds heavier than when he was 220, he still looked good, right?
He's
Like he
got a
just
full
carries
set of
his
abs at
he
220.
he he carries his body fat really well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's just where it sits is like he's always going to have abs. And so like even at 220 he looks good. He's impressive.
So let's clear the air right now because the first thing Brian said to me after he became the greatest natural bodybuilder in the world was, "Do you think we can get Doug out of retirement?"
Now I don't need to now. We have Ryan on the team, right? Like
All right.
we
Yeah.
don't, we don't, we don't need to.
I think
I
that,
mean,
you know,
honestly, I mean, I know the level. I know what I did when I won, and that level of commitment. Not like I'm not committed now. Like I train, I block 2 hours a day to train,
right.
right? Like I love training, and but like I want to go out to eat with my kids and my
Yeah.
wife,
And you're
right? Like
coaching their sports teams and you're involved in everything they do and
yeah,
all that.
like I want to be there, and I don't want to miss any of that to compete. Now, there's a time and a place for it. I mean, when I last competed, Jackson was just born, and he was less than a year old. And you know what, like less than a year old is? There isn't that level of interaction. Like, yeah,
No,
I'm there. I can
they're
change
not even
diapers.
rolling over.
Yeah, right. Like so, like it was honestly the perfect time. I just quit my corporate job, was starting to do this on the own, and the companies weren't big enough where I had, 58 employees like we do now. So it was like I can manage it. I literally worked in my home office. I walked across the street. I worked out. I would walk back and do cardio another time. We had one store that was on the same block, a nutrition corner store that I would go to and hang out and get any supplements I need or would talk or sell or whatever. I go back to my home office, and it was like the perfect setup
Yeah.
ever. And I just don't want to miss everything to do that again. And just the way I am, if I can't do it the way I want to do it
Right.
100%, kind of like, maybe when I turn 45 or 50 or something, I'll diet down again. Like I dieted down when I was 40, and got really lean, probably, 6 to 8 weeks out type of lean.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that again just to push myself. But like
Yeah.
having that pressure of competing, I mean, like I've done what good would it do for me to come back and get second or third or fourth and fifth at the world championships? Like that's not like why would I do that?
I
you know?
mean, to be fair though, you were the best in the world the last time you competed. Your training intensity really hasn't changed that much. I've seen you, you don't look any different to me. And, when I see people like Marshall Johnson and Kent Beerley in their 60s still whooping people because they just have that muscle maturity, so I wouldn't put it out of the realm. I think the thing about natural bodybuilding is it's such a meritocracy. It's time in the gym and consistency. So your muscle quality is not going anywhere, dude. You're still, yeah. So if you ever got
It
the
might
itch,
take me 30 minutes to warm up these days, though. That's probably the biggest
yeah.
difference.
Oh, speaking of warming up, Ron Parmeter is moving to Florida.
Yeah.
Ron, for you guys that don't know, Ron used to promote a show in New York, and me and Doug used to judge it. But he's retiring. Like that's how old we are, Doug. Our friends are retiring now.
The
Uh,
funny thing is, though, Ron, when I first met him, I mean, gosh, we're talking 2013 is when we did the uprising, right? Ish, like when you and I
yeah, it
met
was me,
10
you,
years,
Mark Lobliner,
10,
bunch of
11 years ago. So maybe I met him 12, 13, 14 years. I remember him then counting down his days to retirement from the police
yeah,
force. Like
yeah,
he's been talking about this his entire life. Like he's been counting. He's like, back then he was going to move to Arizona. Florida's
yep.
basically the same, right? So instead he's moving to Bar. He bought a Corvette. He's moving to Florida. Like he had his life planned out. It's hilarious. And
He
that he's
already
been,
has his house. He's coming down here in a couple weeks. We're gonna play golf. So he's literally like the typical New Yorker moving to Florida. But the thing I remember, like Ron was also one of those true bro natural bodybuilding pros that like you get in the gym and you just shut your mouth for 2 hours and you train hard.
yeah.
So I'm excited to have a training partner like that down here.
So are
It's
you
gonna
guys
be
going to train on a regular?
yeah. We live not too far apart and we're just going to meet in the middle. There's the gym that just opened up right in the middle of us. So yeah, it's going to be, I don't know how often, depends what kind of job he gets when he's down here, but I'm with you. Like I competed last year, but I did it on my own terms. I'm not at your level. I'm never going to be the best bodybuilder on the planet. So for me, it's more about just kind of constantly evolving as a competitor. And I had a lot of fun last year, but I was going to do a bunch of shows. I ended up just doing one for that same reason. I was like, no, it's getting to the point now where like my energy's low when it shouldn't be. I'm missing out on things. So I'm gonna pop in and here and there every couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good for your own business too, right? Like the more that you can, like the more that you're involved with yourself and the more things you learn about your own body, you can apply that to other people too,
I
right?
think
So
it's more it's better for my content when I diet down because it keeps my brain on the way the brain works when you're dieting. It almost
yeah,
makes content like I don't have to think. I don't think it matters at this point for my coaching career. I don't think when you're coaching competitors where I'm coaching competitors, no one cares about you. They're not like
yeah.
it's more about
But there's something about that too, though. Like nobody wants a fat coach. Nobody wants a coach that hasn't been there. And you see that in the industry, right? Like
oh yeah, no, I
you
mean
see these guys that like, I mean, I don't want to call out names, but there's a lot of people that like look like a bag of mashed potatoes and they're
yeah.
good coaches,
Yeah,
like
well, and if they've never competed, I think it's dangerous because they don't understand the physiology or the psychology of the athletes. They're
right, 100%.
talking at someone, they don't understand their perspective.
I mean, props to them because I don't even know how they can build that business without doing it themselves. So they must have some marketing genius to get people to trust them.
Yeah, I think it's basically people that are very like charismatic, even sociopathic in nature. Like they have a charisma that they can, you see these people that like the Bernie Madoffs, like these guys are so charismatic, people trust them.
Yeah,
And then come to find out later that like, oh dear Lord, this guy was
yeah,
a crook.
yeah.
So, but Brian, the one thing I talked about Brian about was, he's not competing next year. Like this isn't like he won it. He's gonna take a year, maybe 2 years. And when he
Good.
feels like he's made significant progress, he wants to come back better, a little bit leaner, a little bit more muscle, that kind of thing. And, he's still so young, which is the scary thing. So,
What is
uh,
he now? 31, 32,
yeah,
something
I
like
think he just turned 30. And he's settled in. He's in a great relationship. He's in Colorado. Like he's just one thing I've noticed there's a correlation between my most successful athletes and their life outside of the sport. And I think, you can attest to this too, because how long have you and Steph been married now?
Oh man, are you testing? You put me on the spot here. 2006. So let me do the math. So I think it was
18
just
years?
17 years, a little
Okay,
over 17
17.
years.
So it'll be 18 this year. So, but I'm saying like that part of your life was, settled. So there wasn't this like rambunctious energy outside of the gym where you're in and out of relationships, you're in and out of jobs, you're moving. There's that stability. Um, that's, we talk about Ariana and her husband JD that train at the Crush It Coliseum. That's the one thing I noticed when I met Ariana. I was like, oh, what's your day like? She's like, oh, I just do whatever I want. I'm a stay-at-home housewife. I was like, okay, I think I can work with that schedule, and so, she's going to be one of the best competitors in the world for a long time. And she's just got that foundation of like the gym, the diet, her husband's a bodybuilder. They're living that lifestyle. And a lot of
Well, I
people
mean,
don't know this, but Steph was a world champion too.
yeah, 2007, she won the Yorton Cup World Championship figure. When I
Yeah.
won it in 2009, she got second or third place.
Okay.
The year I won it, but yeah, 2007 she won it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just when you've got that kind of foundation outside of the gym, it
Yeah.
just enhances everything that you're trying
Well,
to do.
over the course of my career, I probably talked more people out of competing than I have into competing. And it's usually in the sense like if you don't have like your affairs in order, outside of the bodybuilding world, like
Yeah.
it's not going to end well. Like I've seen bodybuilding, which is a very selfish sport by definition, right? Like I've seen it destroy relationships. I've seen people lose jobs over it, because they're so consumed with themselves and all the boxes they need to check that
Yeah.
if you don't have a support system of, a wife who either does it or a husband who is in the same sport or at least understands and respects what you're trying to do and supports you, it's going to be very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because they're always going to be competing with your gym time, right? Like, so it
Yep.
is something that you really have to have locked down and you have to have open communication about it ahead of time, or it's going to be a disaster, you
Well, and
know?
I always get concerned when competitors, it starts to become their whole identity,
Yes.
because that is just a short-term part of your life. Um, and you're going to lose, you're going to get beat, you're going to have bad days. And so if that's your whole identity, it's going to really be difficult to deal with down the road. So yeah, I don't like it when it becomes somebody's entire personality. It's one of the things, like when I'm coaching someone, the competition season over and they're like, hey, can I have a free meal? And I was like, you better be having free meals, you better be going on date nights with your significant other, you
Yeah.
better be, you know you better not be treating year round like prep. Like, you know i want you to I want bodybuilding to enhance your life. And for I
So,
think,
do you think that's why you've become such a good coach and a well sought after coach? Because I don't see that, and now, you know, doing this for so long and in the industry and married for so long, like that is the key. That is so important. I think a lot of people miss that. I don't see a lot of other coaches even caring about that, right? They just want the immediate results of the Olympia
yeah, I mean,
qualification.
it's one of the things I despise the most, where the coach or the coach's ego or the coach's desire to look cool impacts their decision for their athletes. I see athletes competing too frequently, um, because the coach wants to have people at every show, or they want to look good for. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I notice. I don't know if that's directly been with me, the correlation. One of the things that, Daraja and I, obviously she's been my best athlete, has really put me on the map. And the one thing that she and I have always had is this great communication where she's like, you know what? I'm tired. I can't go another one. Like, we've had plans to do multiple shows and she's like, no, I'm done. And I'm like, cool. I'm not pushing her to do things that she's uncomfortable doing. We're taking the entire year off. She is not getting on stage in 2024. And she's in the conversation for Miss Bikini Olympia. So to do that in the middle of your career, I think some coaches might be like, hey, you need to get on stages here. And I'm like, no, you've been competing 6 years straight.
Are you
Let's
actually letting her lift heavy weights now or what?
She's actually squatting. Yeah, she's actually having fun in the gym.
She's going to come
Um,
back and you're going to be like, well, you can't do bikini anymore.
she's
You're
going to
going to
have to
have to
be
go to figure.
careful. I'll say this about Daraja. She knows her body so well. She knows it so well. Like, she knows how to train the way that suits her for like her growth, but also for her enjoyment in the gym. She also gets into like some hip hop dancing. Like she really enjoys life. Her husband and her have completely different identities. He's a professional golfer, but they're also both so supportive of each other. So that's another, she's another great example of that life outside the gym that's just really good. So yeah, I honestly, if you said to me like she wants to win Miss Figure Olympia, I wouldn't bet against her. I know that's not what she wants, but so she'll adjust her training as needed if she notices a body part's getting, um, out of range of what it should be. Because the criteria is not changing. Like the criteria is what it is.
She's
So
not competing for years. She might even be able to take creatine monohydrate, Paul.
we took creatine last year. We kept creatine in a lot last year. Yeah.
I remember that conversation where she's like, I can't take creatine because she literally like puts on 5 pounds of muscle when she takes it.
So we went to USF and so her prep ended in September. I'll never forget. Her prep ended in September and we went to USF, got body comp testing done. Then she got accepted to do the Arnold, which is March. So we had literally 8 weeks between the end of the season and the start of her next prep for the Arnold. A few weeks out from the Arnold, she went and got body comp testing done and she had gained 4 pounds of lean body mass. Yeah. She went from 114 to 118. And that was, I was so new to coaching at that level. Like she was my first pro win, my first Olympian, my first competitor ever at the Arnold. So we went to the Arnold and we walked off stage and she was not in the top 10. And the judges were like, what did you do? We're like, what are you talking about? They're like, you got way too big. And I'm thinking like, but Miss Bikini Olympia is way bigger than her. But they're like, no, but for Daraja, she can't be that muscular. She looks too muscular. And now I can look back at those pictures and be like, oh, I see what we did. Her shoulders went out to here, everything, And so that's the thing that's allowed me to become a better coach over the years is trusting the judges more, removing my ego from what I think they want to see. And that's what me and Daraja both agreed. Like the year that she got Olympia qualified, the Olympia champion was just this massive shape freak named Issa. Beautiful girl, crazy structure, lots of muscle. Honestly, Daraja was one of the few girls in the pro division at the time that had a similar structure. So we thought if we put on more muscle, we'll be standing side by side with her. Well, on Issa, it looks one way. On Daraja, it looks another way, right? So it's about those muscle insertions and how it looks from person to person. It took us 2 more years, and then we got back and we were top 4 at the Olympia, right? So we took a little muscle off, got our butt. So I think in regards to coaching, it really comes down to understanding the division you're in. And like, you understand this because you used to coach, you used to do a lot of things. And then you said, I'm going to be the best at what I'm doing, which was core nutritionals. That's why I narrowed my focus to what I coach, because I want to be the best in the world at what I do. And it's hard if you're coaching powerlifting and you got endurance athletes over here. So I really narrowed my focus to prep clients and specifically the bikini division for the most part, so you really got to know what you're doing. And then you start to get the trust of the athletes. And that's, it's like Nick Saban at Alabama. He's a great coach, but he ain't winning 6 national championships with chumps. Like,
right.
you got to have the talent.
You get the pick of your clients at this point, essentially.
I mean, I like to think that I get exceptional clients and I get them exceptional results. Like that's unbeatable. When talent works hard, you can't beat it. When Brian DaCosta shows up every day and hits his meals and goes to bed on time, sorry, you're just not beating him, right? Like he's just going to be a force. And so I'll say the same thing about Daraja, Ariana, Naday, Brittany Hamilton. I've just Lana Dunbar. I've got an amazing group of people that I get it's a meritocracy. I started off coaching athletes at local shows and I was happy to get a top 5. And now, I want to win the Olympia or I'm going to be sad. So it's constantly just raising that bar just a little bit. And well, let's talk a little bit about core and raising the bar a little bit, because you made a pretty significant move. And I want to know, because I've been to both locations and I want to know how it's impacted the brand or the business going from the DMV area, or you were in, was it Virginia?
Yeah, Northern Virginia. Yeah.
And then now you're in, the heartland. I don't know, like North Carolina to me is just got.
I don't know if it's the heartland, but So yeah, I mean, we were faced with the decision of, re-leasing a building, and we were just growing, so we needed a lot of space in probably one of the wealthiest couple. We lived in the wealthiest county and worked in the second wealthiest county, literally in the country, Fairfax and um, Loudoun County in Northern Virginia. Not to mention, I won't get into any of that, but there's a lot of craziness in Northern Virginia, just in general, in school systems and all that stuff. So we were faced with that, like we could move anywhere we want. Why would we re-rent in a space where the rent was, we were renting next to data center. Tesla was our neighbor. We had all these data centers that don't care what rent is. They just want space to put computer. They make so much money, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So we were faced with like, okay, where are we going to go? So we looked at Texas, we looked at Florida, we looked at every place where basically there was no state income tax, just smart business move, right?
Yep.
But the real reason was because one of our biggest manufacturers at the time, Dynamic Nutraceuticals, was growing too, partially because of what we were doing, but they were growing their business outside of us as well. And they just purchased this huge complex that was an old shopping center in Statesville. So they were in Statesville, North Carolina, but they were moving across the town basically. And there was two buildings, and one of them would be perfect for us. So we got in. This was right before COVID, so we got a great deal on it. The construction costs, we basically gutted an entire 32,000 square foot building and built it out exactly how we wanted, complete with the first Crush It Coliseum, all our offices and the warehouse space. And I mean, getting everyone together in this spot here, having basically the full integration with our manufacturer next to us, has really allowed us to expand and do a lot of cool things. We're bringing a number of different brands online this year beyond core nutritionals. So there'll be, and at this point, this building's full. Like, so
Yeah.
actually today I was going to close on some land that got pushed off till next week, but we're purchasing the 16 acres behind this building. And the goal is to turn this whole building into a whole training facility, recovery facility, just grow the Crush It Coliseum brand, and then build a new HQ down there. With the way interest rates are right now and all that stuff, it's a little crazy, and building costs, it's a little crazy to build a brand new building as big as we need right now. So we're buying the land, securing the land for future growth. But yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. We've brought on within the last year, man, I can't even tell you how many people. So like our leadership team across the board at Core and the other brands we have here is better than it's ever been. So, I'm super bullish on the future and what we have going on here. And, I'm getting to a point where, at some point in time, I want to be able to step back a little bit. We're not quite there yet, but I'm really confident in the leaders we're building here and, what we have going on where like, I don't have to be in the weeds of everything anymore. Like
Right.
there was a period of time 2 years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, where I still did the books across all the businesses, right? Which
Yeah.
is insane. Like the amount, like now it's more than a full-time job for a person. So like, in addition to all the other stuff I was doing. So like we've really scaled and grown. And so it's an exciting time. We have a lot of cool products coming out, innovative stuff. We got a lot of license deals lined up and secured as well, which has been new for us and has done really well. Functional foods, RTDs, all of that. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think the opportunities that are opened up just because you're right next to the nutraceutical. So people that don't really understand what Doug used to do to get a sample product made was ship something to them. They would formulate it and they would ship it back. And if they wanted it to taste different, they'd have to start all over that process. Now you guys are literally in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You can hand off samples back and forth. It was cool when last time I was there, we actually got to go watch them make some protein. Um, it's it's when you think of supplements, you don't really think of that process and how, I mean, that environment is so pristine. It's pretty neat to see it in person, just how they handle having all those things in that building. So wait,
Yeah. Yeah.
just so I'm clear, you said that they bought both buildings. Did they sell one to you?
Yeah. So
Okay.
before we even decided to come down here, they only bought it for that one building. They didn't know what they were going to do with this, but it made sense. So they purchased this complex is about 16 acres, and then we bought the 4 or 5 acres that kind of sit around this building from them. And then
Okay.
we gutted it out and did all of that. And now we're securing the other 15 acres or 16 acres
And
behind
you're
us.
opening another Crush It Coliseum near your house, right?
I mean, that's a huge endeavor. I mean, that's a massive investment, and I'm super excited about it. It kind of was one of those things that fell in our lap. You know, we've been collecting equipment for a long time because we take a lot of pride in our equipment. We go literally across the world to get our equipment, and a lot of times we have to fully refurb it right now. So I'm doing a YouTube series called Under Construction right now. I'm picking that back up, and it's walking us through what we do for this gym, and like I just filmed a video of us walking through HQ here, and in between the aisles, there's probably 40 pieces of equipment that came back from the powder coater, all nice bright red, but now they have to be assembled. Like it's a
Yeah.
massive endeavor. And, you know, we're doing a lot of things, the murals in the new place, and we're building stairs to build a powerlifting area in the basement so the whole building doesn't shake. We're doing some really cool things there that haven't been done in this area. And, you know, right now we have a lot of people driving upwards of 2, maybe even 3 hours on the weekends to train here at the HQ facility. And a lot of people will come up for day passes from Charlotte. We're about 55 minutes north of the Charlotte airport. So we're building one in Mooresville, which is about 25 minutes south of here. So actually a very reasonable drive directly from Charlotte. So we're going to get a lot of members driving up from Charlotte to visit this location. So, you know, for us, it's really about continuing to grow the core, Crush It, Nutrition Corner, all the things we have going on, that community wherever we are. And so
Yeah.
this will be a massive, um, uh, you know, thing that we have to continue to build that community.
Well,
And
when
so
I
we're
was there,
excited
you were
about.
you were also talking about doing some stuff with like youth sports, batting cages, speed training. Like basically, we both have sons around the same age. Sloan's about to turn 10, and we have him with a speed coach one day a week, an agility coach, and he's got his
Yeah,
soccer and his footballs and stuff like that
yeah.
practices. So is that something that you're still
Yeah, so
considering?
when this entire building, so 10,000 square feet of this building right now is our gym. When we are able to move our operations from the supplement side into a new building that we hope to be building, that's when this whole thing becomes a training facility.
Yeah.
So I have some really cool announcements that I can't talk about yet, but sometime within the next probably 3 months, shortly after the Arnold, I'll be able to talk about in terms of Crush It Athletics and some other things that we're doing. That will be really cool and really where my focus wants to be in that sense. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
it's
my goal is to have wrestling mats here. My goal is to have some batting cages, a lot of turf, a lot of functional stuff, try to attract some of the best, sports trainers there are and then some of the best coaches. And not only that, but we're going to have a full on essentially recovery and think about it as rehab, prehab business in here as well.
yeah.
So those plans are already in the works, and I'll have more detail here in the next 3 or 4 months.
It's pretty neat to see how your businesses have mimicked your passions in life. Like obviously when you graduated from Penn State, you didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a
No,
supplement company owner.
no.
You were competing in bodybuilding, so you were coaching some bodybuilding. You didn't love the supplements, so you're just like, well, let me compound my own supplements and I'll kind of make my own. And then people started asking for that. And then it just bled into to the point where like you couldn't afford to keep a job. You got basically forced to leave. And I think it's kind of doing that again. Now with you being so involved with your kids, you're looking at like, okay, where are these kids going to train and stuff? It's so you're basically looking at opportunities. And the Crush It Coliseum was purely accident. You used to just keep gym equipment in your warehouse in Virginia, and then
It
you're
was
like,
because of
well,
COVID. We started buying gym equipment, right?
let's just make it so we can like do leg day here or something. Like, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
And then it just got to the point where it was like, well, crap, why don't we just build a whole gym?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like we are super blessed, and you're in. I mean, you can speak to this too. That like you get to do what you love to do, like, and
Yeah.
I really wish that for everyone. Like I don't. When I was growing up, it was like get into the best college you can go to the best school. Get a consulting or a banking job or something like that was kind of.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care if my kids don't go to college because honestly, a lot of the institutions today are just not teaching really things that are applicable to what the
Well, in the
kids need.
ROI, I mean, the debt,
Oh,
you're
it's
going
ridiculous.
hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt to
I
go
would
for
rather,
like,
I mean, if they tell me they have a business idea and they have a real plan, I would rather put their college savings towards that plan and that business for them to follow something they're passionate about than to make them go to school. Now, I'm a huge believer in education, and, because I feel like it has taught me how to learn, right? Like it taught me how to study, it taught me how to do those things. And that really helped me be successful in the consulting job I had and the businesses and, all of that. But like, man, if I kind of knew then what I knew now, you can't, hindsight's 2020. So I don't know how much would it really have changed, but like, like there's a lot of things that I could have potentially done differently that I will help my kids through. And,
Yeah.
it's, if everyone could follow what they're passionate about, people would be a lot happier. Like you see those people that are just miserable going to work, right? And they're just
Yep.
absolutely, and they're just, Monday through Friday is a drag, and then they get Saturday and Sunday, right?
Yeah,
And I feel very blessed that I
a
don't.
lot of people work just to afford the life that they want to live. They're not working because they doing what they want to do. Yeah, no, it's like I feel like I've had two lives because I left my job after 11 years at like 34, 33, 34. So it has
It's
felt
so
like two
crazy how
lives.
similar our paths have been, and we've talked about this before. But like, I did
Yeah.
consulting for 12 years before going all
Yeah.
in on that, right around the same time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny to see your coaching and what we have going on. It's always been very parallel, and even with
Yeah. And
family and everything else, like our
I
kids are.
think a lot of that parallel is just because of the power of the internet. Like we couldn't do the things that we're doing now 20 years ago when the internet was at infancy or even not even really usable as a means of commerce, right? Like
Okay.
my job sure as hell didn't exist. Um, Supplements were sold by Jay Cutler through Muscle Tech magazine ads, and
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. That cell
like
tech.
like you might have been able to sell some supplements with your physique, but you probably would have had to jump on the Olympia stage, right? So like it's literally like the change in the kind of climate that is the world. Like everyone now has a platform, and the people that give the best information and provide the best products win. Doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter what culture they're from. It's literally the best, hardest working people succeed long term. And there's always going to be elements to that are, talent based and stuff like that. But I always think about that when I watch some Gary Vee videos. He's like, 20 years ago, if you wanted to put something on TV for people to watch, it would have cost you $100,000 to rent a studio and a camera and edit it. It's like I can literally put my phone up and have it on the TV in 10 minutes on YouTube for
Yeah.
zero cost. So, there's opportunities that I think you and I have both probably reluctantly, it was very, very odd for me because I was raised the same way as you. You go to college, you're getting a degree, you're getting a good job, you work your way up the corporate ladder, you get your 401k, you get your insurance paid for, you get your paycheck. Um, and you buy a house and like that whole thing. So that's how I was raised. So to this day, I'm pretty sure my dad still doesn't know what I do or how I have a 7,000 square foot house. I don't think that all adds up for him.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. There's a lot of people these days that, they run their business from their house, they're on YouTube, they're doing all that stuff.
Yep.
It's just it's mind blowing. I mean, it's mind blowing for me. So I can only imagine our parents, like this is just completely wild, and
Yeah.
for us, we have to keep up with the times and are constantly, like I'm not a TikToker. Like I'm just not. Like I've downloaded it, I've gone on it, I've deleted it, I've downloaded it, I've deleted it. But like we do TikTok advertising, we're setting up our TikTok shop. It's just kind of what you have to do to
Yeah.
keep up. And so luckily I don't have to do all that stuff myself at this point, right? Like we have staff who are smart enough to know how to figure it out and can tell me what we need to do, right? Like I just need to give it a thumbs up. And so it's been interesting for sure.
Well, the one thing I've always known about you is that you're very aware of everything that's going on within the business. You keep your finger on the pulse. I mean, maybe a little less than you used to, but to the point where like you're not going to throw money at a problem. You're going to actually try to figure out how to solve it without spending money,
100%.
or with at least being fiscally responsible. Whereas I think some companies, sometimes I'll talk to friends of mine that are like, "Yeah, I'm just starting my coaching business. I hired someone to do my appointments. I hired someone to do my video editing. I hired someone to make my I was like, no, you do all of that. That is
Yes.
your job. Until you have more clients than you can handle, you don't pay people to do the jobs that you can learn how to do. And I think I mean, when you start your business, which you did from literally nothing, same as me, you do every job. And so when you
Yeah,
get to a place where you don't want to do that job anymore, you know how to train someone, or you know what to expect from them. Um, so yeah, I think that's the evolution of like seeing core become what it is. And obviously you've had the blessing of just some amazing people that come into your life and have been a part of that business.
yeah, for
That
sure. I mean, like, it's all about the people. I say this all the time. It's all about the people, right? Like, if it's not, then we're doing something wrong here. Like, we have a great group of people that truly, I don't like to call everyone a lifer. You know what I mean by that?
right.
Like, somebody who's going to be there forever, because like things always happen. And whenever I say that, somebody who I think's a lifer leaves, right? Like, that's just what happens. But
Yeah.
we have some great people that, are aligned with our core values, which is really important, and love what they do. And, I'm super glad that we can provide a job for them that they don't feel like is a job. And they do so well at it because they don't feel like it's a job. They
Were
love
you
it.
nervous when you really brought this plan into action of leaving Virginia and going to North Carolina? Were you nervous that like, oh man, like there's a potential here that we could lose some staff? Or did you discuss that with them before you moved?
Yeah, they actually bought houses before me.
Oh
So
wow.
like I didn't even like, they came down here. I told them what we were doing, and they came down here, they bought homes, so they built homes from the scratch, like, which was a great thing. They sold their small condos in Northern Virginia, came down here, built a house to what they wanted, got some land and built it up themselves, and it was, 4 times the size of it,
Yeah.
for a cheaper mortgage, right? So like that was a win-win. So they were super excited to move
Yeah.
down, right? Like, I didn't cut their salary because we went to a lower, cost of living place. So it was like an immediate big raise for them. So it's funny because they came down and did that before we even secured land to build our home. So I always joked with them. I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna rethink this idea. Like, I think I changed my mind. We're gonna stay around here. Yeah, that didn't go over so well, but
Yeah.
yeah, they were on board. I mean, most everyone that needed to come came, and even some people that who's now like Tyler, our facilities manager, like our warehouse manager, he worked with us for like, I feel like 6 weeks, and we talked him into going with us because he saw what we were doing, and he's worked a lot of other places, right?
Tyler
And
was on the flamethrower when I was there.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, and we're just like, now it took a little convincing. I was like, dude, like, you're single, this is your big move. This is your moment. You can stay here in Northern Virginia, or you can, take a risk and see what, is in store for you down here.
Yeah.
And, he's very conservative. So like, it took a little pushing, but like, he's like, all right, I'm in. And he's been all in ever since,
Yeah.
so like, it's pretty cool to see.
Well, hey man, I appreciate your time today. I think the next thing we got coming up, other than, well, we've got our transformation challenge kicking off here. And I'm loving the start date. I don't know if you noticed the genius behind this date. It is the day after the Super Bowl.
One last hurrah.
Well, I think everyone thinks of the new year as like, oh, January 1st. Everyone, no, it's not January 1st. People are
It isn't.
they're still recovering from the holidays. It's more like February 1st. So we're
Yeah.
starting February 12th.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm excited this year. We haven't locked in any dates, but we're going to do a few live events
Yeah.
with you guys this year. So I want to do
Yeah.
some seminars at your facility in North Carolina. I believe this year I can finally come to the Nut Bash. The date every single year has been on the date of a major competition that I've had to be at, and I looked this year
This
and
year, I think it's what, the June 9th weekend, June 8th, 9th, something like
yeah,
that.
and so
Yeah.
it's usually it's like June 16th or 15th.
Yeah, it's a little bit
So
later. Yeah.
yeah, so it worked out this year, so I'll be at that. And then of course we got the Arnold. So give me just before we go, just give me a heads up on what's going on at the Arnold this year.
A little bit of everything. So we are launching a new brownie flavor. So we launched the Moose Tracks brownies, which have been amazing for us. Like, they've took off. I knew they were going to be good, but I didn't think they would sell as well as they've been selling. Like, they're through the roof. Like, it's crazy.
Now, is
We're
this something that people are like adding on to their order, or are they just ordering the brownies?
a little both, but like,
Okay.
we're moving it a lot through our wholesale, right? Like, so we sell on our website, but we have a really big wholesale business. So we sell to distributors that sell them to gyms and,
Ah, I gotcha.
supplement stores and gas stations and all of that. So that's really, so we're launching a new flavor of the Moose Tracks brownie. I don't know if it's been released yet, but I'll tell you, it's banana peanut butter. So it's awesome.
Elvis.
It is amazing. It's ridiculous. And so that's launching. And then I haven't talked about this at all. So we're launching my pre-workout so that like I'm
Oh, I
involved
had
in the
it.
formulation, but this one is like it's like the Doug Miller Pro series. It's called
The
Ascension.
DMP.
The label doesn't look like anything core. It's totally me. Like
All right.
it's pretty cool. Not saying I'm cool, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I don't know. When I picture you, I kind of picture the America Labs marketing, just the over the top, like, you know.
That's my alter ego. That's the other side. That's where I get to say things that will get me canceled.
All right.
So yeah, the Ascension pre-workout, it's over the top. Basically, think about taking 2 scoops of Core Fury and 2 scoops of Core Pump and adding some other things, throwing it all together in one pre-workout.
I
It
don't
may need
know. You know, I had it, right? You had a tub of it when I was there.
Oh, you did. I don't know if that's the final version, but yes.
Well, it was on the counter with no label, and I was getting ready to go work out, and I was like, I need a pre-workout. And somebody in the office said, "Well, take that. That's the Doug Miller project."
Yeah, yeah. So
And
that's
let me tell
coming.
you, I was tingling. I was like
Yeah,
buzzing. I was like, yeah. I actually got Ariana's husband, JD, was coming in that day, and I said, "Hey, man, you got to try this."
yeah.
He
It's
wasn't.
good. So that's launching at the Arnold. And then what we've done this year is we've moved the America brand out of the Core brand. You know how we have that really big booth for Core? That's now
Yep.
all Core. And then right next to it is a separate America booth. And then we'll have the arms race booth, across the way as usual. So like, we'll be there as, with a presence as big as ever. And, there's a lot of new stuff going on. So
Exciting. And this year it's a little more condensed. So usually I'm there on like Tuesday or Wednesday. This year the bodybuilding competitions are only Friday and Saturday. So it's gonna I'm excited for it. I really want to be at the booth as much as possible. So I'm gonna stay all day Sunday. Last couple of years I've left because I had to get there like Tuesday, so I didn't want to stay Sunday. So this year
yeah,
I'm gonna stay the whole weekend. So it's been good to see the fitness expos come back. The Olympia, the Arnolds have really been, I think the fact that there's quite a bit fewer fitness expos and it's given more punch to the ones that historically were bigger.
yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
last year's Arnold was really good. The one before that, the first one back after COVID was meh. So like I think they're coming back.
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now, people are itching for experience-driven events, and I think that's what the Arnold, it's based around competitors, but it's also it like kicks off the year. And as a coach, I can tell you, it literally lights a fire on the coaching industry because everyone goes and then they come home and they go, I'm ready to start prep. It's like, yeah, so it's a fun time
I
of
see
year
that.
to just be around great athletes. And not to mention I have an athlete competing at the actual Arnold this year, the pro bikini. So I'll be there for like both days of that. We'll have, we'll have Ariana and Daraja at the booth, right? So, I mean, you got two of the top 10 competitors in the world at the core booth. So
Yeah.
that's been exciting because you guys brought Ariana in as a full athlete now, right?
Yeah.
That was pretty recent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's just exciting. It's proud to be a part of it, man. And I'm looking forward to the year. So
Right
appreciate your
on.
time.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, of course.
And we'll talk off the air, all the stuff that's going to be going on.
Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.